Hello future CAs, welcome back to my channel again. So in today's video I am sharing a crucial ICAI BoS update for the CA Final AFM that can make a real difference to your marks. So these are important exam oriented points straight from the BoS webinar. If applied correctly, they can help you push your score towards 70 plus. So let's quickly get into it. Guys, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Every subscription works like a motivation for me and it also makes my day. So guys, when you visit my channel, do check out the playlist section. You will find several curated playlists for the CA final exams. Make sure to explore them and watch the videos in order to get maximum benefit from each topic. So first suggestion given in the webinar was, most of the times it was noticed that students ignore the theory part in this subject. So mostly this subject is practical. However, theory questions will also come. So do not ignore the theory portion. In all the chapters, go through the theory portion as well. Because from any chapter, theory can be asked, and sometimes even in the compulsory question, as a part of sub question it might come. So do not ignore the theory portion, because in the past it was noticed that some students ignored theory portion and they were unable to answer the theory questions. Hence this led to significant loss of marks. The next important point clarified in this webinar was query on decimal point rounding off. So many students had queries like for different types of practical questions, how much decimal points they have to round off the answer. So first it was mentioned that sometimes in the question itself they will mention as to how much decimal points we have to take. So we have to read the instruction given in the question carefully. And if in the question itself there is instruction that take up to 2 decimal point or 3 decimal point, then we have to strictly follow that itself. And if we don't follow that rule, we might lose marks. So that is very important. First we have to see in the question itself whether they have given as to how much decimal point we have round off. And sometimes if there is any question where they have not mentioned as to up to what decimal point we have to round off, that time what we have to do, there might be some clue in the question. So we have to see that clue in the question. For example, if there is a question on forex, suppose. So in that kind of question, we have to see that the forex rates, what they have given in the question, that is up to what decimal point. So if the forex rate in the question is given up to 4 decimal point, then in our solution also we have to use the same thing. Then in the solution also you have to round up to 4 decimal point. Next point, suppose there is a question on security valuation and you are computing the value. So at that time it was suggested it is better to round off up to 2 decimal points, because generally the price of a bond or shares are generally quoted in terms of 2 decimal point. So for security valuation you can go up till 2 decimal point. Suppose in security valuation itself, so when you are computing the value or price, that time you can round off to 2 decimal point. However, you are computing the duration, that time you can round off to 3 decimal points. So it is different in security valuation for value up to 2 decimal point, and in security valuation itself if you are computing the duration, then you can round off up to 3 decimal points. So this is the difference here. Next, some suggestion was given for the chapter capital budgeting. So for capital budgeting, the figures are in lakhs or million. So in this case it was suggested that you can take up to 4 or 5 decimal point. It doesn't matter in this case. And then one more suggestion was given regarding rounding off for mutual fund chapter. So in mutual fund chapter it was noted that some questions they have taken up to 2 decimal points and for some they have taken up to 3 decimal points. So for mutual funds it was suggested that you can use 3 decimal points. So I hope you have noted down this carefully, because decimal points play a very important role in this AFM subject. Also guys, there is a separate playlist in my channel for CA Final AFM. I have added the link in the description below. In that playlist you can find videos on strategies, plan, and you can get more clarity on clearing this AFM subject. Now the third point discussed in this webinar was there was some confusion regarding the treatment of dividend. That is when the dividend is given in the question. So there are two types, right? D1 and D0. So there was some query asked by the students as to when the dividend should be considered as D1 or when it should be considered as D0. So for that some clarity was given. So sometimes in questions like security valuation, there is confusion regarding this D1 and D0 dividend. So what was suggested was, if the dividend expected is given in the question, then you have to take it as D1. And if they have given as dividend paid, especially if it is paid in the last year, then you have to consider that dividend as D0. So now this is clear if they have given in the question itself. However, sometimes there might be a question where nothing is mentioned. So they have not mentioned whether the dividend is expected or dividend is paid. Nothing is given in the question. That time what to do? So that time you can assume it either as D1 or D0. In both of the cases, marks will be rewarded. But what you have to do is, in the notes section, you have to write an appropriate assumption that in your calculation, whether you are considering it as D1 or D0. So that is very important. You have to clearly write a note that in your solution, you are assuming the dividend to be D1 or D0. So guys, these were the key BOS clarification you must not ignore for the CA Final AFM. So especially do not ignore the theory question and decimal rounding off. Be very careful with this. And last time previously in another webinar, clarity was given on decimal point rounding off for NPV related question. So that I have covered in another video which is there in the playlist which I mentioned earlier. So the playlist is there in the description. Please go through that. And also I hope your dividend related confusion is cleared. So small mistakes can cost big marks. So apply these points carefully in the exam. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and also share it with your friends who are appearing for the CA Final exam. And also subscribe to my channel for more exam updates and scoring strategies. All the best for your exams, and I will see you all in the next video.